Welcome back. This is Brighter Morning with Bo, and I am Bo Tiwari. This is MCTV, Multicultural TV, beaming in Trinidad and Tobago on many channels and throughout the Caribbean. Our next guest is a very distinguished professional in the field of medicine, and we will try to connect with him now. Is he on the line? And we will talk to Dr. Vijay Narayan Singh about his life, his work, his profession, and maybe get him to make some kind of assessment of what's happening at the present time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Narayan Singh, how are you? Good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Tiwari, and I hope to you and your viewers, and I hope if I break into the regular old talk and say Bo, that it'll be okay, because for the audience, I have known Bo Tiwari since we did A-levels together in QRC. It goes that far back.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, and it has been a good friendship. I wanted to start at the point where I asked you to come on this program. You've been on my mind on many occasions to talk to you on this program, Brighter Morning. But when I saw this honor you had received recently from your Caribbean peers, I thought that it was appropriate because I have known you as a distinguished professional for many, many years. And I have always known you practicing medicine and doing surgery and being involved in the profession. But what people do not see is the tremendous amount of research that you have done in the field of medicine and the number of publications. Only academic people would know that. So I wonder if we could begin by talking about this honor that you recently received, why you received it, and what it reflects in terms of your work.
Well, it's the National Interinstitutional Research Award. So it's looking at researchers across the country in health research specifically. And it's really quite an honor to be chosen from among the many distinguished people who do research. Research, as you correctly pointed out, has been part of my DNA from the day I graduated, and perhaps even before, as I indicated in my acceptance speech, because I did a research degree while I was still a medical student. So it's just been part of my DNA, as I said, but part of my interest in developing Caribbean surgery specifically, but Caribbean medicine in general. And therefore, a lot of my research involves getting younger people interested in research, because we have to develop our own recipes for our own problems.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, because you did say that in your response to the award, that we are accustomed to drawing on the research of others in industrialized or very developed countries where they have significant technologies and a lot of resources. But you indicated that, in the Caribbean, in these little islands, trying to deal with our people and give them the best possible medical care, do the best quality surgeries that we can do, that the research basically has to be focused on our situation, what are the challenges we have, what are the solutions that are specific to our situation. Give us an example of how that has worked in your research?
Okay, first I'll be general and then probably I can give an example. Generally, like you correctly pointed out when you were speaking to the earlier accountant, Maraj, you mentioned that you have to work in relation to your own country, your own community. And this is so important in the Caribbean because we have wide ranging populations. You have a place like Montserrat that has about 5,000 people, and Jamaica is the largest, which is approaching 3 million. But what many people don't realize is that only about 4 Caribbean territories have a population of over 250,000. And therefore, we are dealing with very small island populations. And when the population gets smaller, the expertise, meaning the personnel that you have, the range of specialties you have, the amount of equipment you have, all diminish. So that you can't, for example, I mean, a good example is very easy for us here. Tobago is next door. Tobago has a population of, say, 50, 60,000 people. For you to have a plastic surgeon, a urologist, a retinal surgeon, anterior chamber surgeon on the eye, and a cardiac surgeon, and a vascular surgeon, and a whole range of surgeons, is just not sustainable. So, and Tobago is a good example because there are many island territories that have that kind of population. And therefore, the facilities you can offer, the expertise you can offer, and the cost effectiveness of the delivery are all contained and curtailed by just the island population. So these are areas that have occupied my interest as a researcher. Of course, I have much broader interests. I have interest in disease processes and surgical solutions that are international, that are not necessarily local. But maybe I would say about 20% of my research has focused on really local problems and solutions to them. But of course, as a researcher, I have a general international perspective on what we could and should be doing as well, and how we can solve problems. So to get specific, for example, as you asked for a specific example, Trinidad, just when I say just, maybe about 3 years ago, got its first PET scan machine. Now, there's only one in the island. And the cost of a PET scan is considerable. And you're dealing with people who can't afford a lot. I mean, I know the company has made a lot of provisions to try and help. Then you have, and that's for cancer detection. Then you have the robot. The cost of a robot is enormous, and the benefit of a robot doing laparoscopic surgery relative to a human doing laparoscopic surgery, and we have many excellent laparoscopic surgeons here in Trinidad, the cost effectiveness is probably not something that we could bear. So that we have to consider these things when we bringing equipment. And then if you bring something like a robot, then you have maintenance costs and costs not only in terms of money, but in terms of expertise. Who is going to maintain this and who can go and fix it? So that's the kind of, all those are considerations that we must have when we consider advances in surgery, or when we consider what others tell us to do.
Okay. Given where the world is going now in terms of technology, and you've mentioned some of the things, how does a country such as Trinidad and Tobago, or a country like St. Kitts or Jamaica or Barbados, I mean, how do you plan, organize, and deliver a quality healthcare system, and at the same time provide excellence in healthcare where precision is required. Is that possible at all? Or do you have to make arrangements that are beyond your island limitations?
Yes. Right now we have, for about the last 18 years, a group called the Caribbean College of Surgeons. I was a foundation member of that and its first vice president. And we have a chat group. Every day I look at the Caribbean College of Surgeons chat. And we interact with surgeons all over the Caribbean. And in fact, we engage in discussions of difficult problems, and they would send patients here. Patients may move from one island across to Jamaica where there are facilities and so on. So we do need to have a inter-island cooperation. For example, not every island could have a renal transplant program. Not every island could have cardiac surgery and so on. And St. Kitts is a good example. We do get patients from St. Kitts, and the chief surgeon in St. Kitts is a very, very dear friend. We have good interpersonal and inter-island communications. You see, when you are in a place like America, you can move from a rural surgery setting to a tertiary top class setting by just jumping in a car and driving 120 miles or 150 miles. But you can't do that here after 40 miles in the water. So while we are different groups, almost like different states, we are separated by water. And therefore, and we also have different governments, and cost becomes a factor. Because if somebody can't afford a particular thing in Grenada, and they have to fly across here, then there are government arrangements that complicate matters. And I remember a particular case of a lady who was opened in Grenada, and she was pouring blood, and they had to put packs in the belly and fly her across. And there was no time for any kind of arrangement. And we just went ahead and did her surgery at Mount Hope. And she lived. She was just 35 years old. So there are these emergency arrangements that governments should define more clearly, because we are on the other end where a surgeon calls and he says, listen, this woman's blood pressure is dropping. We have to get her across, and you just have to do something. So, and we have to act, I would say, outside of the boundaries of rules and all kinds of restrictions in a situation like that. And if we just follow rules, the patient will probably die. So I think there's time for example, every island has a medical council. And I keep complaining about this. Every island has a medical council. I cannot go to Grenada and operate, or go to St. Vincent and operate. I have to get clearance. In fact, there was a difficult case in Grenada. I had to go and we had to cancel the case. And the patient had to come here. I can't go and operate on another island without getting clearance from their medical council. Medical councils are like public servants, 8 to 4, and all sorts of restrictions. When you have a disaster like an earthquake or hurricane or something, or some plane crash, and there are hundreds of people injured and needing care or needing surgery, there is not yet a system, in spite of CARICOM and the Caribbean. We have tried to set this up where once we have a license to practice in this country, we should have the freedom for emergency practice. I'm not saying elective practice or just go and practice. We should have the freedom to have emergency practice license in the event of a disaster to go and help our Caribbean neighbors, or they come and help us. So it cuts both ways. But that is it's disturbing that something as simple as that could take so long.
All right. When I'm going to ask you, we're going to have to take a break now, commercial break. But I'm going to ask you a question which you can reflect on. I mean, how do people like doctors across borders operate, for instance, it seems relatively freely. I don't know if there are bureaucratic arrangements that I'm not aware of. And secondly, how does the technology, the fact that you can sit here in Port of Spain or Mount Hope or some other part of the country and by video talk to somebody and explain to somebody what needs to be done in another country, assuming competence at that level in the country, and get certain things done. Has that enhanced the situation? And should that be elements of the complementarity together with easy movement of medical people, easy movement of patients that we need to look at as we go forward? So we break now for commercials. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. We are talking to Dr. Vijay Narayan Singh, medical practitioner, surgeon, and researcher. And we come back after the break. Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari.
As businesses adapt to the new normal, let Magic Mist take care of your cleaning and sanitization needs with our COVID-19 BSCAI internationally certified technicians. With over 43 years of protecting the health of our nation, you can trust us to ensure your building remains safe, healthy, and functional. Give us a call today at 638-6675 or 332-5522. Magic Mist Services Limited, your total facilities management solutions provider.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
For the best prices and friendly service, check out Westby Supermarket today. Affordable prices just right for your pockets. Shop in clean, spacious, and well-stocked shelves for all your needs. At Westby's, we stock a wide variety of fresh fruits and vegetables, and also pre-packaged veggies for on-the-go meals, and not forgetting a wide range of meats for any occasion. Westby Supermarket, located in Diego Martin and Aruca, for all your shopping needs. Call them today at 632-8150 or 632-0009.
Back to Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari, and you are watching on MCTV, Multicultural TV, beaming in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean region. Our guest at this time is Dr. Vijay Narayan Singh, and we just asked him a question, so we'll ask him to talk about it. How are the technologies?
Yes.
And how are the bureaucracies? How can we make them work in complementarity to look after people, basically?
Yeah, well, you asked two questions. The first is about how does Médecins Sans Frontières work? Because they go to war zones all over the world. They're based in Brussels, I think, and they just have all their staff just move out and set up tents and emergency medical services, major surgery, and so on. Evacuation plans and so on. So, but I don't know what licensing system they have, but they are truly international. They were given the Nobel Prize for that kind of work just maybe about 15 years ago. In fact, about 25 years ago, they invited me to Belgium to be an expert on colon trauma surgery, to speak to their surgeons who go out there. I was one of 5 surgeons worldwide who went to speak to their people about it, because there are techniques that we had recommended where you minimize the use of colostomies, those bags that you put on, so that the stool is redirected to save the life of the patient. But anyway, the point is that they have a licensing system, and although, as I said, I have been in touch with them, I don't understand exactly how their licensing system works, but it may well be a good model for us in the Caribbean to use, at least within CARICOM. If there's a disaster in Guyana or Grenada, we should just be able to fly out and just go and work. But at the present time, if we do that, it's illegal. And if the patient dies, they want to know, well, who are you to just come in here and interfere with our people? So we really need to rectify that. And we've tried, and it's extremely slow in coming. So that's the first thing. That's the first point I want to make. The second thing you ask is, what about transferring skills from one place to the other? And that's what makes that particularly useful, that question, is that we actually have done that. We have sat here, Professor Shamir Kowich, who is a hepatopancreatic biliary surgeon and a laparoscopic surgeon, advanced laparoscopy, sat here and using computer technology and even cell phone, was able to conduct an operation detailing information to a surgeon in Barbados who, as you correctly said earlier, who has the competence but who has never done such a procedure. So we have facilities for doing things that will this piece of work has been published. In fact, I'm a co-author on it because I've been a little involved, but Shamir Kowich is really the mind and master behind it. So this is something that is happening. I personally have created a YouTube platform for teaching surgery. We have 34 videos for the first time in the Caribbean teaching surgery to people who are not familiar with some of the procedures. And there is a lot of progress. I'm really excited about the future and the young guys coming up. They so master these technological advances that they're doing things that we had never done before. So it's quite an exciting time, quite a progressive time for Caribbean surgery. And what's the additional benefit is that it's not just happening. It's being researched thoroughly, good standards being maintained, good studies being done, good audits, and there is a lot of communication between surgeons about how we are doing. And that's not only locally. Locally, the communication among surgeons is excellent, but regionally, it's also excellent. So surgery in particular is on a good footing at the present time.
Okay, so, I mean, you've had a lot of experience not only as a university professor and teacher, but you've also had a lot of experience in the Trinidad and Tobago health system as well. I know that you've served in the Port of Spain General Hospital for many years, and you also basically had a number of, besides the work that you did, you had a number of interns under your charge and so on. Now, my assessment of the Trinidad and Tobago system is that you have excellent professionals in this system, and they are gifted, they are well trained, they work well, and in a crisis they can do well, but somehow the system does not work well. Am I wrong in making that interpretation? And what what can we do to make the system more responsive and get it right, etc., in Trinidad and Tobago? I'm asking you as someone who has been in the system, someone who is not specifically involved now in the system, but can watch it in a detached way and with knowledge, and as someone engaged in systems thinking really for medicine, what can you bring to the table that would get us to a solution framework then?
What you're saying there is absolutely correct. There is a lag between the expertise and the delivery of care. It's a huge gap. You know, we have people who go abroad and train, who come back with a specific area of expertise, and there is no facility for them to practice. And the facility doesn't just mean equipment. The facility means provision of an operating room, provision of staff, motivated people, that kind of thing. I mean, I've seen an elevator down at Port of Spain Hospital example for months. That cannot happen in any private building, as far as I know. An elevator goes down and it's fixed in a matter of days, can't be more than a week. And the same happens with, say, a CT scan machine. A CT scan machine will go down for months in the public sector, but that won't happen in the private sector. So that I think that the public sector and the private sector need to come together, manage at a management level to understand what the issues are and what the solutions are, because the two of them operate quite differently and do in fact get different results. And that's something that we should be benefiting from. We shouldn't have expertise in the private sector delivering a quality of service that should be available to the general public, because the general hospitals, whether it's Mount Hope or San Fernando or Port of Spain or Sangre Grande, have physical facilities that are really quite good. Maintenance and systems are failing us. So there is a lot that can be done, and I feel we can make these changes relatively easily. I don't think they're that difficult to do, but we need people to sit down and see what the problems are. Because generally I find administrators do not admit to start with that we have a problem. They say, well, everything is all right. We're on top of this. We're in control of this. We don't have a crisis. We are managing, etc. And that's unfortunate, because the people who suffer the most are the people who simply can't afford it, which probably would constitute maybe 80% of the population. So we have to be sensitive to that need. And I think a lot more could be done.
Yeah. I just want to go back a little bit. I mean, you have been a pioneering surgeon in terms of things like kidney transplants and so on. You've had patients who've lived after the transplant for 40 years and so on. Would you like to mention some of the pioneering surgical work that you have done within the hospital system in Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere? You can just mention like two or three. Yeah.
Well, fair enough. I mean, transplant has high visibility, but there is replant surgery where we rejoin severed limbs, which never happened before, where and then there's free tissue transfer, where we can take a bone from your leg and put it in your arm and make it work and get a new blood supply and so on. Free tissue transfers with things like breast reconstructive surgery that didn't exist, I would say, 40 years ago, and we started doing that as well. And so many, we've designed new operations that haven't been done anywhere in the world, in fact. And we did it just to suit our patients and our needs, but they are also internationally acceptable. and cost effective. For example, there are lots of materials that are used that we're saying, look, you really don't need to use that. We can actually fix the problem without that expensive stuff. So there are lots of advances that we have made for us as a people, but we have also made internationally at various techniques, different ways of doing things with getting as good results, if not better results. So these are things we're happy about now. Transplant surgery has become routine. Replant surgery, replanting severed limbs, has become relatively routine. Free tissue transfers are also common. Breast reconstructions are common. Aortic aneurysm surgery, carotid artery surgery for stroke is another area. Distal lower limb bypass to save limbs, diabetic foot techniques we've published a lot on to save diabetic limbs. So there's just a whole exciting lot, and everything that I mentioned here, there are young people doing them at a rate and a quality that is excellent. So I am particularly happy about that. It's not good if you have made you started something or made some progress and then it dies. In fact, it's mushrooming, it's developing, it's expanding. Laparoscopic surgery in Trinidad is flying. We are way ahead, I think, of the rest of the Caribbean. And it's not just being way ahead of the rest of the Caribbean, helping other Caribbean countries. We have guys from here who go and do workshops, visitors who come, and we have a lot of exciting things happening to develop the expertise both locally and regionally.
Okay, and a lot of this, all of it, in fact, is recorded in research papers that have been published in medical academic journals, and therefore is freely available to those in the profession, whether they live here or in other parts of the world. And that in itself is a basis for further collaboration and cooperation across national and international boundaries, right?
That's absolutely right. I was saying when I had the award recently that when I started in Trinidad and Tobago in '74, there wasn't among surgeons a real culture of aggressive research. I mean, everybody was trying to do things, but aggressive culture of research. And that has grown so well that Trinidad and Tobago now would be the country responsible for the most publications in surgery in the Caribbean. And these are not publications just I talk about real international, published in Australia, in Britain, in America, in Canada, in China, in Brazil, everywhere. So our work is very well known, and in fact, we do get invitations to places, and we get commentaries. Like I will be talking to the Association of Surgeons of India in about 3 weeks' time about a paper that I had published because they wanted some input. So and this is the same way I had been invited to Brussels. So this is an international conversation, and as I said, the younger surgeons now are writing at a rate that we had never seen in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. So we are now conversing with the international community, not only on surgical technique, but on science, on audits, on results, and so on. So I think it's a real good time for us in surgery.
Now, tell me something. A lot of this has to do with the culture of mentorship and the culture of cultivation of a love and a drive for research and research production, which I think you have certainly played a major role in developing along with others. So I want you to talk about two things. I want you to talk about the people who have played a mentoring role in your life and development as a researcher and as a surgeon and as a medical practitioner. And if you could talk a little bit about you and some of your peers who have played a role in creating this situation in which Trinidad and Tobago is really the producer of perhaps the most academic articles on matters related to the medical profession and particularly on surgery.
Yeah, in fact, everything you've asked there is quite close to my heart and to my consciousness. I did mention last week when I was receiving the award that quite a few people have stirred my interest in the early days. And I remember when I did my first paper in 1975 at a conference in St. Lucia, I was an intern. I was the only intern in the entire meeting. Everybody there, consultants, professors, experts. And when you sit in a group like that, you're really inspired to work. And I spent much of the time, I still remember that meeting. I have a photograph of myself sitting alone by the pool, just thinking about where this is going. And when you sit among giants, it could inspire you, it could intimidate you, but it could also inspire you. And then coming out of that, I got so much encouragement from my seniors that I'm sure my juniors, I don't have to say it myself, must find me one of the most encouraging people to work with, because I encourage them every step of the way, and it requires a lot of patience. When I give a junior to write a paper, it's tiring. It's tiresome. You know, you go through 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 drafts before you get a paper off. Whereas I could sit down and probably write it in a few hours. But they need it. And I need to have the patience to sit with them and to work with them. And you know, it's so rewarding when you see somebody has their name in print in an international journal for the first time. It's a feeling that you can't describe. And if it inspires one person to pursue research and to make progress and to promote our country and the level of our practice, that's good. But the number of such young people I have seen fly after they started research is very rewarding. So I have had, though, locally, my major boss in surgery locally was a man named George David Busby, who was a master craftsman. His hands were magical, his dissection clean, his post-op complications low, but he never liked to write. And there I was as a little intern, and I had the interest in research and writing. And I wrote many papers with him, co-authored papers with him. He would read it and he'd say, well, okay, go ahead and submit it, etc. But he never did hold me back, and he continued to encourage me, and he would go back to cases that were outstanding that he had on file and say, go and look at this case, and so on. So I was encouraged that although he himself didn't have the inclination to write, he encouraged everything I did. And then when I went to do vascular surgery abroad, there was a man named Alistair Carmody, who was a Jerningham gold medalist from St. Mary's College, left here, I think, around 1956 and never returned. And when he saw me, he said it has been his life mission to train someone in Trinidad. And he took care of me like a son. So I have had, and he was a master technician, magical hands, but he could write. He could really write. He was a true scholar. He was a true Jerningham gold medalist. And he encouraged me. And then I mentioned in my talk last week, David Piku, who had been the director of the Commonwealth Caribbean Medical Research Council for many years, took me as a scientific secretary when I was a very young man. He saw something in me that he encouraged. And up to today, I continue to praise Dave Piku, because what I learned from research in that 13-year period as scientific secretary of that Commonwealth Caribbean Medical Research Council was incredible. I had to read almost every research paper that was published in the entire Caribbean, even in areas that were not surgical, and had to understand who was working, where they were working, what they were doing, and the quality of research. And I had to assess all of that. So really, it was, I think I'm a product of really wonderful people. And I try now to ensure that my juniors get that opportunity to grow and develop. And it's amazing how many of them actually follow the path. So I now write papers with juniors where I am hardly ever a first author anymore. I don't have to do the bulk of the work. They are there and they're going at it. And I am now just a co-author.
The culture has been transferred. That is great. Now, I'm going to close the discussion at this point, and I'm going to play what we can out of the video I have, so people will see the situation in which you are called to receive the award, and at least part of what you said on that night. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Vijay Narayan Singh, for being with me this morning and talking about your work, your surgery, your research, your teaching. Thank you very much. Maybe on another occasion we can have a follow-up discussion. This is Brighter Morning. This is Brighter Morning with Bo, and we now go to a video in which Professor Narayan Singh, and he is professor at the university, receives this particular award, a lifetime award.
I am pleased to recognize Professor Vijay Narayan Singh as this year's Lifetime Research Award recipient. Professor Narayan Singh, welcome this afternoon. Congratulations. We welcome you to the podium. Prof, we're not hearing you. Could you check your mute button there in terms of volume? We're seeing you, not just hearing you. Still not hearing you, Prof. No, not.
Okay, got it.
We are hearing you.
You hear me now?
We have you, yes. Good afternoon.
Okay. Thank you very
Welcome.
much, Dr. Smith. I'm very tempted to say Stuart because I know Stuart from our very early days. I wish to thank Professor Donald Simeon as well, the director of the Caribbean Center for Health Systems Research and Development, and your Inter-Institution Planning Committee for the National Health Research Conference Lifetime Research Achievement Award 2021. I am particularly humbled and touched by this award, as the hosts are all local: the Ministry of Health, the UWI, the UTT, the University of the Southern Caribbean, and the regional health authorities. While regional and international awards may appear more prestigious, and I have several of those, a national award such as this is particularly cherished, as it comes from you, the nearest and dearest, who know me really well, personally, my weaknesses, strengths, etc., my work, and I really want to say how cherished it is. The other reason why this award means quite a lot to me is that historically, Caribbean surgeons were not generally known for doing research and publications. And when I was very junior, I very often single author papers, or my boss, who was very encouraging, would have me write, and we'd have joint authorships. So this award offers greater validity as I work with so many juniors on their respective projects in surgery. Although my research interest was undoubtedly stirred by the research degree I did in anatomy while I was a medical student in London, The real turning point was when I presented my first paper on gastroenteritis, of all things, a surgeon, on gastroenteritis, the 1974 outbreak, when I presented that at the Commonwealth Caribbean Medical Research Council meeting in St. Lucia in 1975, 46 years ago. And as the only intern in that conference, the junior most, sitting among the finest research minds from across the Caribbean, was truly an inspiring experience. So inspiring it was, in fact, that I have not missed a year in that 46 years when I have not presented and published papers. It is so important for us to recognize the value of nurturing these young minds. I was a beneficiary of that. They are very brilliant, some of the people I work with, and excited to work with them. In my earlier years, as I said before, I was often the first author at least. But for the last 25 years, I am hardly the first author in most publications because the juniors take the lead and I guide them. I walk them through it. And while 46 years of research, publishing, presenting, teaching, running clinics, ward rounds, operating theater sessions, they all sound so busy, and indeed it was never burdensome. It was always pleasurable, delightful, and exciting. It was never work, never stressful, never onerous, always satisfying, and at times even thrilling. Research for us in the Caribbean is absolutely essential, particularly in a field like surgery, of which I can speak, because most of the recommendations for practice come from well-developed countries where they have all kinds of sophisticated items in their armamentarium, and they're not really relevant to us who live and work in small island nations as a Caribbean people. And therefore, we have to research and devise and design systems that work specifically for us. And this has occupied much of my time and work. Now, on retiring from the University of the West Indies 6 years ago, I found myself more busy than before. More time for teaching, more time for research, for writing, since the other things which I did not particularly like, such as meetings, writing memoranda, doing staff appraisals, drafting policies, they're all gone. And now, this great, wonderful time, I have more hours for thinking, reading, writing, guiding, and doing operative surgery as well. A lifetime award like this sounds like something granted in one's geriatric years. But this cannot apply to me, since I am a strong believer in Ulysses' philosophy, so elegantly expressed by Tennyson in a couple quotes. He speaks of this old man and this gray spirit yearning in desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star.
Welcome back to Brighter Morning with Bo. We are going to close up shop now. We will be here tomorrow. My first guest tomorrow will be Minister of National Security and Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, Stuart Young, and we will talk to him about energy-related matters, and more particularly the recent signing between Shell and the government of Trinidad and Tobago for basically monetizing our share of Manatee. And then we will talk to members of the economics department at the University of the West Indies. They are putting on a conference which starts tomorrow, but we will talk with them about the nature of this conference. We thank Dr. Vijay Narayan Singh, Professor Vijay Narayan Singh, for being with us and for conversing with us on medicine, surgery, and the evolution of research and the continuing good work in research in Trinidad and Tobago. We move on now to Andrew Chan and the 8 o'clock news.